Good morning, everyone. I am Mohini Avasthi from the Department of English, and this is my co-host, Pranay Sood. We are delighted to welcome you to the one-day national seminar titled Literature in Artificial Times, Meaning, Possibilities, and Purpose, where we gather to exchange ideas, inspire discourses, and learn them together. See, we start with a quote. Devices are not dangerous for literature. People can be dangerous for literature. People, for example, who do not read.
Thank you, Moini. We mark an auspicious beginning of the proceedings for the day by appealing for divine blessings of Goddess Saraswati. I request our guests and Principal Sir to please join us for lamplighting and Saraswati Vandana. Thank you so much. I hope we have blessings of the divine with us for the proceedings of the day. Now, in order to pay homage to our institution, the University of Delhi, I request you to rise for the Kulgeet.
जयति जय जय जयति जय जय ज्ञान का लोक अनुपम श्रेष्ठ सुंदर दिव्य दिल्ली विश्वविद्यालय विहंगम जयति जय जय जयति जय जय ज्ञान का लोक अनुपम सकल वसुधा नित्य कुटुंब की भावना संस्कृति सनातन आधुनिक शिक्षा पुरातन ज्ञान धाराओं का संगम देश की स्वाधीनता एक भूमिका शतकोटि वंदन निष्ठा कृत्य सत्यम के मंगल दिव्य भावों का समागम जयति जय जय जयति जय जय ज्ञान का आलोक अनुपम भव्य महाविद्यालयों के परिसरों से चिर सुशोभित श्रेष्ठ गुरुजन कर रहे नित्य छात्र और छात्राएं दीक्षित सदचरित्राचार पावन साधना संकल्प से नवल वैश्विक चेतना नव क्रांति संस्कारों का उद्गम जयति जय जय जयति जय जय ज्ञान का लोक अनुपम श्रेष्ठ सुंदर दिव्य दिल्ली विश्वविद्यालय विहंगम जयति जय जय जयति जय जय ज्ञान का आलोक अनुपम ज्ञान का आलोक अनुपम ज्ञान का आलोक अनुपम ज्ञान का आलोक अनुपम
Now, to formally begin our seminar, I would like to request our esteemed head of the institution, Principal Sir, to come to the lectern and address the gathering.
Professor Kavita Sharma, the chief guest of the day, Professor Pramod Kumar, and other guests, my colleagues of the Morning College and dear students. It's a matter of pride and privilege for me to address on this seminar which English department is organizing on a very relevant theme, that is literature in artificial times. I was just thinking that recently Commerce Department has organized a conference on this topic, which was technology. And I never thought that even English department could have such kind of seminar which has some relation with technology. So I was just wondering that what artificial time means. And I was surprised to know this thing, that it is about digital media, artificial intelligence. So definitely literature has a challenge also in artificial times, because now we can see that AI is doing everything. So artificial intelligence, even novels can be written in seconds, fiction can be written, anything can be written. Storytelling can also be there in through artificial intelligence. So there is a challenge. Now, what is the challenge? The challenge, what I feel, is we also need to feed AI rather than becoming dependent on AI, totally dependent on AI. AI should be used as an aid, as a tool to enhance our capacity, our capabilities, our impact on the society as far as literature is being concerned. So I think that this is a very relevant theme, and another matter of pride for me is also, and for in fact the Shaheed Bhagat Singh College, is that in the entire English department, that for the first time they are organizing this conference in this college. And I think this is the second conference since we have inaugurated this academic auditorium. And I'm sure this artificial intelligence, literature, and all the scholars, those who are going to gather today, are going to dwell upon this topic and suggest that how artificial intelligence can be useful in creating an impact on the society and the literature as a subject, and also on the entire the university and the academic community. Thank you for coming to this conference or seminar. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your welcome note. I will now hand on the proceedings to my colleague, Modi.
Thank you so much, sir. So this seminar is the brainchild of the senior members of the faculty of our department, and it seeks to address the changing dynamics of literature in our present technologically mediated age. We have seen revolutionary changes in ways humans negotiate their relationships with literature in an image, with technology, and often in classrooms and outside. Run into questions of the relevance of literature in an image saturated social landscape. Bearing this in mind, and to shed more light on the matter, we now request the convener of the seminar committee, Dr. Sahitya Akademi, to come upon the dais and introduce the seminar and its intellectual impetus to the audience.
Thank you, Mohini. Uh, hello, am I audible? Yeah. Thank you, Mohini and Pranay. Uh, respected Kavita ma'am, respected Principal Sir, uh, Professor Pramod, Professor Sanjeev ji, Professor Rajesh ji, and my dear students and my colleagues and friends, those who are here. Mohini has given an encapsulated idea of what this seminar would be about. And then there are another questions that have been raised. Even our principal sir has raised a very pertinent question. What do you mean by artificial times? And it's not only our principal sir, but I've been receiving calls from many people that what do you mean by artificial times? So before I talk about artificial times, I would say that the topic has two components to it. One is literature and the times in which literature is produced. Now, when I say literature, literature is shashwat, literature is permanent, literature is eternal in one sense. So to define literature is the most difficult task. It is part of our life. It is ourself most often when we express ourselves, when we manifest ourselves. But then what do you mean by artificial times? Why not call it contemporary times? Why not call it today's time? Why not call it artificial literature in the times of artificial intelligence? So I didn't want to reduce it to artificial intelligence itself. I'm also concerned about, or our idea was, and this has come out of our everyday reality, more so from our classroom teachings. Why are we teaching literature? This is the pertinent question that we need to ask ourselves every time when we enter classrooms. Why are students there? Why shall they study literature? What is its purpose? Especially at a time, and I would not say it would be wrong if students would want to do something in AI or in digital technology, or even they would want to do masters in business administration, or even sometimes you come across students, those who say that they want to be a good makeup artist. What is it that literature would serve them? Isn't it it's don't you think it's an existential crisis? It's an existential question that we need to ask our own selves. So it is also driven by the pedagogical crisis that we are all facing, and departments of humanities are closing down across the world. It's not a crisis that India is facing, and the crisis has deepened with the technology that we have available with us today, as principals are also talked about. AI can write a novel in a few seconds, not just in days, but you give a prompt and a novel is available. Keeping this in mind, we tried this. It's not that we didn't try it. Sitting together, we all colleagues, we thought, why not just ask AI to write a poem as T.S. Eliot would have written? And it produced a poem absolutely similar to, or almost intensely equally intense as T.S. Eliot would have written. Almost a poem that would have talked about J. Alfred Prufroe. We were shocked. I said, okay, now let AI write a poem on melancholy in Delhi. AI produced that also. With all that, the concern that struck us, what about our students are far more better, computer savvy, tech savvy, AI savvy. They can easily access all these things. Won't it make us redundant at one point of time? They're getting all kinds of information available to them through AI, through all these. I'm not claiming that AI is bad or good. As we always say that there has to be a balance. We need to learn how to use AI. But then artificial is not merely related to AI. Artificial is also, I looked for the dictionary meanings, or especially the Hindi terms for artificial. Mostly when we talk about artificial intelligence, we talk about artificial intelligence. Artificial is translated into Hindi as either kritrim or aprakritik. Artificial is everything which is being made by man, which is not naturally available to us. So don't you think that literature is also produced by man? So isn't literature artificial in that sense? But do we call literature artificial in the more broader sense? When we talk about artificial, there are other meanings of artificial. When it is banavati, when it is chadm, when it is nakali. So would we call literature nakali, chadm, banawati, thagi? But these are also the characteristics of the times that we are living in. And these characteristics are something that only literature can expose. So literature and artificial intelligence, or literature and times, are rather symbiotic, because literature is the product of its times, but literature also shapes the times. In these days, in today's time, literature has become all the more important. And therefore, we thought, why not ask this question? With each age, with each time, literature also changes, its meaning changes, its relevance changes, its purpose changes. And these are the questions that have been asked by scholars, thinkers, philosophers for ages, starting from Plato, coming all the way to Premchand. When Premchand giving his first address, the presidential address, titled his address as Sahitya Akademi, the purpose of literature. And then he talks about literature for me is not the mirror to life. Literature to me is the critique of life. Sahitya जीवन की आलोचना है, or literature aims at truth. So when we say if literature aims at truth, then it goes against the idea of artificiality. That is where they both artificial times and literature become contradictory and dialectical and conflicting. And this seminar, as we thought of organizing it, we thought, let there be a churning, let there be some ideas being shared by scholars and intellectuals and even creative minds. Let us hear them out, and it could be an initiation. We are perhaps the first to even start this dialogue. I'm not talking about digital humanities, which is already in vogue. I'm simply talking about literature. I'm talking about how relevant literature is today, but in today's time. So let's start this, and let's look ahead what we get at the end of the seminar. And I'm looking forward to thought-provoking sessions and an engaging session. So let's see. And we have speakers here, we have everything here. I will not take much of your time. I'll conclude here with some sense of openness, with some sense of, I would say, no knowledge. Even I would want to gain out of this seminar. So let's see what comes out of it. Thanks a lot to all of you. And let's look forward to a scintillating and electrifying seminar. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Katoch, for those very interesting words. You've given us a remarkable way to think about literature in those few moments that you've spoken. We would now.
Just a second. I would just like to add that we would, Jetson would joke around in the staff room that the AI is coming for your jobs. We're done. You look out for yourself. And again, but when we ponder upon that, it's a sad world where teachers are not there. So yeah.
Thank you, Moini, for scaring us. So we now approach our first session, our keynote address. And it is my honor to welcome our esteemed guest, Dr. Kavita Sharma. She's a distinguished scholar and the former president of the South Asian University. She's an academic, of course, with an illustrious career spanning over 37 years at Hindu College, University of Delhi. Her contributions to higher education, international academic exchange, and research on the Mahabharata are truly remarkable. She's a recipient of prestigious fellowships, including the Fulbright and Indo-Canadian Shastri Fellowships. Dr. Sharma has authored numerous insightful works that continue to shape academic discourse. We are privileged to have her with us today, and we eagerly look forward to her insights.
Now, it is my great privilege to invite our esteemed guest, Dr. Kavita Sharma, to grace the stage. Ma'am, we are truly honored to have you with us today, and we eagerly look forward to your invaluable insights. Please join us with a big round of applause.
I would like to invite Dr. Vardharaj and Ms. Ira Gaur to come forward and present Dr. Sharma. with a token of our respect and appreciation in the form of a planter and Angavastram.
Now I would like to call upon our dear Professor Bhagat sir and our dear principal to the stage. So we are delighted to welcome Professor Pramod Kumar, a distinguished scholar and professor of English at the School of Humanities, Indira Gandhi National Open University, with expertise in both conventional and open distance learning. He has made remarkable contributions to literature, criticism, and translation through his publications and research. A mentor to PhD students, and a global advocate for education and peace, and a recipient of the prestigious honors like the Ambassador for Peace Award. Professor Kumar continues to inspire through his academic and humanitarian efforts.
And our principal, sir, Professor Arunatri. For those of us who are students here, who teach here, he needs no introduction, but it must be known that he is the youngest principal in the history of the university, a dynamic, forceful individual, someone who takes charge, leads the way, and since he took charge, he has been making radical changes to the infrastructure of the college, making the system more efficient, and we can't thank him enough for that. We request Principal Sir to felicitate Dr. Kumar with an Angavastram and a planter. इसको भी हटा दो अब बस उनसे बोल दो कि टेक ओवर कर लें Thank you, Principal Sir. And now we begin our session. I'd like to request the chair of the session, Dr. Pramod Kumar, to take over the proceedings.
All right, thank you very much. Good morning to all of you. I think now that the stage is set, the whole idea has been explained by the seminar convener, and we are all keen to take off with this point as to how do we uncover the various layers and how do we understand the purpose, meaning, and possibilities. I think the way I understand that, first we'll listen to our esteemed keynote speaker, and then we'll take off. We'll discuss the various sides and dimensions of it. May I request Professor Kavita Sharma to enlighten us on this important piece where we come in.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me now? Okay. So, good morning, everybody. And this is such a new topic that I think it is a matter of dialogue and discussion rather than a straightforward keynote address, since it affects all our lives. So, it's a pleasure to be here. Professor Atri, Professor Pramod Kumar, Dr. Sarvachetan Katoj, my colleagues here, students. It's always nice to come to a college. It takes me back to my old days when I was at Hindu College. I must pay my tribute to Dr. Chandramohan because CLAI is collaborating with it. It was his great desire that it should be affiliated to Sahitya Akademi. And finally, it has happened. And so I'm very happy for it. So I must remember him that it has happened at this point of time. And one of our requirements was that CLAI should be not just a distinguished association or organization with reputed scholars and young scholars and aspiring scholars, but it should also be an active organization. So Dr. Katoj, who is a very active member, part of the executive of the CLAI, when he talked to me, I said, well, let's collaborate. And I'm very thankful to you that you have agreed to collaborate with CLAI. Of course, it's your own organization since you are an executive member of it. But nevertheless, I'm grateful and I'm very happy that Sahitya Akademi has also agreed to collaborate with us. It gives another dimension to the seminar when other people also come together and become a part of it. Now, two things. I'm a Stepney here. I was not supposed to be here. It was Professor Kapil Kapoor who was supposed to be here. And I hope he's well now. I was told that he is not well, and so he can't make it. And finally, after roaming around here and there, the subject has fallen into my lap. But as coincidence, luck, whatever, I work a lot in higher education, mainly in higher education. Since I became the principal, I understood that from the other side of the table, what is the view? And what is seen as stubbornness on the part of the principal or non-understanding is also because the view from two sides is so different. And so I started working on higher education and trying to understand it. And again, as luck would have it, I was in Canada in 1984 when the Khalistan movement was in full swing and Vancouver was the hub of it all. And I used to wonder how it happened. So internationalization of higher education became my field, particular field in higher education. And so I have just finished an article on internationalization of higher education in the digital age. So how it's an elite activity and how virtual internationalization, which we don't even hear of it in this country, but is discussed a lot in Europe and is discussed a lot in USA. And the COVID pandemic only accelerated that discussion because all the campuses were closed. So no one could go anywhere anyway. So then I said, well, okay, if we are talking of internationalization of higher education in the digital age, what about literature? What about literary studies? What about humanities and social sciences as a whole? Because as Dr. Katoj pointed out, forget Delhi, but I've just come from Chennai. Many schools have closed down, I saw, their humanities section. There is no literature in humanities, except what is required by CBSC, that core English or whatever it is. And it's very sad because if it closes down there, then what hope has higher education? Because they are the feeder cadre for us. So what hope of higher education? And why does it close down? It took me back to my Hindu college days when everybody wanted to do commerce or wanted to do economics. No one wanted anything else. And because the question was, what is the job prospect? So, from one view of what is the role of education, whether we like it or not, and no matter how much we advocate it, today the first question is, what job will I get after this? And it's not only here. I go a lot to USA and talk to people there in the university system. They all talk about the same thing, that the literary studies, humanities, social sciences are not as popular because simply because of the job prospects. So the first thing is that what are the job prospects has to be kept foremost in the mind, no matter how much we preach to the students or parents that, oh, this is not what it's meant to be. But in everyone's mind, the question is, what is the job prospect? Now, I read the concept note very carefully. And one area is the concern for the low demand, which I have touched upon. In the literary studies, even today, English and economics fare better than many others. And why? Economics and commerce, because money came center stage. Today, on the forefront is money, its generation, and its distribution. And therefore, the money as a symbol of social status has come to the forefront. And therefore, literary studies do not fare well in it. Now, even when they do literature at the undergraduate level, it's not necessary that they actually want to do a master's level. It's not even necessary that they want to do a PhD. It's simply because there are no jobs. There's such a paucity of jobs. So, what in higher education we call the babysitting functions. So, the university really goes into a babysitting function that instead of roaming around on the streets, you come to an MA class. And that is why you have an admission of 200 people doing MA, but your classroom is only able to seat 60 people. Because they don't really expect you to come there. I mean, there's a lot of noise about attendance, but actually, if all those 200 people arrived there, nobody would know where to seat them. So, people want to branch out in different fields. And what are the fields they branch out in? One, of course, civil service. It's lost some of its sheen, but not all of its sheen. And it's not that they want to serve the nation. I have been on the selection board of the UPSC. It used to irritate me no end when doctors and entrepreneurs and everyone would come and say, appear, and I would ask them the question, why do you want to join civil service at the age of 30? You will retire as a joint secretary. Why do you want to do that? You are doing much better in your career. Oh, I want to serve the nation. No, you don't want to serve the nation. You get the power there, and you have the best of scientists and the best of everybody under you. A young undersecretary wields far more power than any one of us wield, and so that is what happens. And of course, not all, but there is money to be made. So the civil service, law, many people do law after literature, and many people used to come and say, I want to do journalism or now media studies. And I would tell them, why literature then? You're going to report on politics. So then, of course, naturally, political science is a very hot favored subject. So editing, publishing houses, now that is also getting a little defunct. I have a friend who is a very, very good copy editor. She's out of job because people are using things like Grammarly. So why worry about paying a copy editor? Then another interesting thing that came to me, somebody tried to rope me in, and mercifully I didn't agree, that there are a lot of Chinese students and their English is bad. And they're studying in Australia and in US and Australia, some in Canada. And before they submit their assignments, which are in poor English, you have people who are sitting and making the assignment, they're rectifying the assignment. And so and they pay a lot for you to be able to make that assignment readable and in a flow. And that is why when I was doing my book on India and China as a comparative study of higher education in the two countries, I was surprised, well, not so surprised, because I've been to China and their spoken English is very poor. So professors wonder that how such good assignments come, but they can't do any discussion in the class. They can't answer a question in the class. But anyway, that's another big area. And another thing that people start doing after doing English is writing essays for those who are trying to seek admission in American universities. And you can earn 5 to 7,000 per essay. And if an application demands 3 essays, there you have a neat 20,000 in your pocket for writing those essays. But one thing is common in all these activities, and that is the use of internet. So it is information technology that has transformed our lives, and everything is being built upon information technology. Now, therefore, there is a declining demand of humanities for their own sake. But this is not something we can bemoan, because there is a declining demand of pure sciences also. How many people actually want to do pure science? No, because again, the rewards, monetary rewards, are not there. So everyone wants to do applied sciences, biotechnology, industrial technology, chemical technology. All this is, very, very popular, but not pure sciences. And I used to ask people that if you don't have pure sciences, how will you do applied sciences? But there is no answer to that, because it doesn't matter to them. As long as they can get their jobs, it's fine. So demand is for what? Computer sciences. And my own South Asian University, which was started, if you read their vision statement, and if you read their business plan and everything, very exalted ideas of producing great intellectuals and A-rate education within the region, so that people don't have to go to Harvard or Yale to get that kind of education. Now, with all SARC in a mess, what have they started? B.Tech computer. What have they started? Management. So I said, yeah. And the foreign students have declined, because we will not take Pakistan, we will not take Afghanistan. Very few people come from Sri Lanka. Very few people come from Bhutan. So where do people come from? Bangladesh and Nepal. And those who do manage to show up from Pakistan don't want to go back. Even the Bangladeshi students now don't want to go back. So anyway, what I'm trying to say is, this exalted notion of education doesn't last, because now that if this university has to earn money, it has to do these things, because nobody else is willing to give them too much money. Okay, so then now the demand is computer sciences, management, and the other buzzword is environmental sciences. You open a department of environmental science, everybody will come. But nobody is willing to study geology, which is the foundational subject for environmental sciences. So it leads to, what is the very purpose of education? Is it really all-round development, making ethical human beings, develop all aspects of a person's personality, physical, emotional, mental, analytical, discretionary powers? And so is this what we aim at? Well, we may aim at it as teachers, but the students are not particularly interested in our aim. Okay, so now literature actually is a great subject, because as I was discussing in the principal's office, it really encompasses all kinds of disciplines. You cannot study a work of literature without going into its economics, sociology, history, the milieu of the times, power structures of the time, gender notions of the time. So all of this forms a part of literature. So I think one step we as practitioners must take unlike what people think, many people from literature get very good jobs in the corporate sector. But we haven't done a survey of that. We must do it. We must bust that notion. I mean, you have to fight the negativity on their own field, and also for yourself know whether it is true that after doing literature there are no jobs. I mean, I was surprised one day to receive a call from Oberoi Maidens, and they wanted two students from philosophy to be trained as hotel trainees. And I said, why hotel trainees? And they said, because we will teach them hotel management. But without conceptual understanding and without an understanding of human beings, you cannot be a good hotel manager. We deal constantly with human beings. So I think we need to do surveys of this kind, because this was not a straw in the wind. I know so many people who have then branched out into different fields of work after their undergraduate in literary studies or literature. Now, of course, many have gone into media, many have gone into even print journalism, which today, for some reason, and has a little greater credibility than what we see on our televisions. So therefore, literature brings human understanding. And without human understanding, without being able to formulate what it means for society, we cannot work. Now, imagine a society, because literature is connected to music, it's connected to dance. I mean, if you see our own aesthetic theory of and go to Natya Shastra, there is the text, and there is the acting, and there is the stage, and all of that, but everything literature is connected. And so imagine a world without any literature. Imagine a world where there is no social science, no literature, and you have only STEM subjects and you have only commercial subjects. What would that world be like? To me, it would be a dystopic world. It cannot be a normal human living. We'll all go crazy like that. Now, coming to literary studies in the age of internet and digital technology and artificial intelligence, which people shy away from, but I really don't shy away from it. It's a fact of life. It is with us. And we see teachers saying, oh, everything comes out of ChatGPT. The principal also said you can write a novel in half an hour with ChatGPT or some such thing. We'll come to that. But if you want to deal with literature in the digital age, I think it will affect our whole curriculum formation. It will very radically affect our pedagogy. It will also have to be, attitude of teachers will have to be changed. Attitude of students, it will be easier to change than teachers. And why do I say that? Because this is the Gen Z, and they're born in technology. They can't seem to do anything without a screen in front of them of some nature, whether it's a tablet or whether it is their phones or whether it is their computer or whatever else. And it will be a new age if we launch into that direction, which will have synergies, of course, because you still need the text, however you use it. It will be a new age with a new literature, with a new reader, and a new education. It's a very, very radical change, but it cannot be done overnight. It will have to come slowly, but certainly we need to start thinking about it. That what will it be like? Because this is a part of our lives anyway. And this new reader who reads on the net will require new sets of reading skills. Like somebody like me, I was just saying, I can't read those 300 pages on the net and remember what was said. But the new reader will be able to remember, will be able to jot down points from that on the net itself, which we all cannot do. Now, digital technology already has transformed literature, or at least influenced literature at all its levels. Its production, without a computer, we cannot produce literature, how it is received, and how it is reviewed. Without digital technology, without the internet, this is not possible. So, digital literary studies will give birth to new literary forms. It will be born digital. I mean, one way of doing it is to have a text and then put it on the net, transcribe it on the net. But the other is to be born digital. You don't need it. You don't need a literary text, and which will give rise, I think, to new literary forms and new reading media. Now, for many people, us like us, who are staunchly traditional, digital poetry will not even be poetry. We will say this is not poetry. But it is. And if it catches on, as it is, I mean, remember our former minister, Dr. Kapil Sibal, sending out little poems from his phone. Well, he was just ahead of us, but a lot of people are writing poems on their phones. Anyway, so at least there are three forms of digital literature. One is digitized literature. That means originally it's in the printed form, and then you transfer it onto the net, into a virtual environment. Then you have digital literature, which are digitally originated texts. And they use words, images, colors, and sounds. Right? And therefore, it is a combination of technology and literary form. Now, in this, some things are required from the reader. For example, if the text mentions, let's say, a forest or a war or whatever, and then maybe there's a hyperlink to it, and you click on it, and you will get a forest there, and you will get the birds there, and you will get, and depends on what the text is all about. It may be a dark and gloomy forest, or it may be a very cheerful place. So you will be required, if you want to enjoy that text, to do many things. Now, therefore, we cannot have passive readers of artistic texts. And as I said, it is a story with illustrations, with the appropriate music, and with an appropriate, what I call, visual manifestation of what are the important symbols, mythologies, or whatever else that are being used in the text. Now, there is e-literature or electronic literature, which is very close to digital literature. Again, it is born in the digital world, and it is not digitized. It is created on the computer itself, and without the computer, you can't read it. You can't download it, and you can't print it out. You have to read it on the computer, and therefore it requires computation skills, because its creation, preservation, and display is all in your hands. You are the author. But the author now is not just dealing with the text. Either you learn it yourself, or you collaborate with the computer scientists and data analysis people to be able to produce all this. So it requires the reader also, once you have this digital e-literature or electronic literature or even digital literature, many people use it interchangeably. It requires you to play with it. It's not a straightforward text. You press a key and you click somewhere, and you moves one object from one place to another place in the visual part of it, and the whole meaning changes. Right? Now, you can become the co-author of that text. So it's a new kind of text. You can reorder some elements of it. You can have a different ending. You can have an open-ended thing. You can decide how the story will flow. So you have the broad contours of that story, but it's you as an active reader to create another story out of it, or not just one. Today you have moved something from here to there, but 3 days later you come back to it and say, no, no, I can do something even different, more different. It's not better or worse. It's just something which is more different. And so many options are there, and then the storyline will change, and accordingly, literature itself will become a game. In the best part of, in the best way that you can use it. So it's not a static text in front of you, in whatever form, electronic form or print form. Now you can create something out of it yourself. What are its characteristics? It is coded. Therefore, it involves a code, which means you have to either learn it or you must collaborate with a computer scientist to be able to code it. It is interactive, as I just said. It requires the cooperation of the reader and text. It ruptures discursive linearity. It does not necessarily go from one to the other. The character may behave completely in a different way, because you have made it behave in a different way, but then you will have to find its motivations and change it accordingly. Now, it could be digitized prose, it could be digitized poetry, it could be a digital narrative, it can be audiobooks, which are very popular, it can be hypertext. Now, the other digital poetry can be visual and kinetic, because now it's not difficult to present a visual image of what the poem, you think the poem is about. Now that can be disputed by somebody else whose interpretation of that poem may be different. As literature people, it's our job to see many facets of the same writing, right? So you can have digital drama in which you can leave it open-ended, or you can have interactive drama. You can have animated comics out of it, which have now come more onto the screen than before. You can create graphic books out of it. Now, I don't know how many of you saw it. I'm sure many did. Sita Sings the Blues. Yeah. So what do you think that is? It's a digital drama. You take the broad contours of the thing, and it's actually a musical of 2008 American musical by somebody called Nina Paley, who has inserted her own life story into the contours of the story of Ram and Sita, but it is from Sita's perspective and not from Ram's perspective. And the movie is narrated by 3 Indonesian shadow puppet players who are known as dalangs. And these puppets that they move around, their dialogues are in an Indian accent. What is it there? They're trying to show that influence of India in Southeast Asia. I mean, I have sat through all nights of Mahabharat performances with the dalang, and I did write an article for Sangeet Natak Academy at one point, where you have the screen and you have the dalang who sits in front of it, and you have a little light on the screen. In olden days, it used to be a lamp, but oil lamp. Now, of course, you have different lighting, and you have a banana trunk there, and he puts all the good characters on one side and all the good bad characters on the other side, and the story goes on. But the audience sits all around that screen. So what is good for the front becomes bad for the back, and vice versa. So it creates a great complexity in the storytelling, and you see that all-night performances of Mahabharat, and more Mahabharat than Ramayana, and their great heroes are Kumbhakaran and Ghatotkacha. So it's a completely different perspective, but here, as I said, the accents are what she's trying to tell you, that the influence of Indian literature and how it has traveled outside and what different forms it has taken. She has inserted herself into the play, her own life story of how her marriage broke up. And so you can play around with Ram and Sita, because Sita also decided finally that no more of this, right? Then you have the verbal digital literature, which is ebooks, multimedia, and linear stories, which you can hear. And you can have hypertext and you can click links and you will go to some other parts of some other literature. You have the graphic and the visual literature, which combines the verbal literature, but the visual elements are the dominant elements in it. You have the, as I said, you have the audio literature, which are verbal texts and sound elements. So you have audio books, and the Amazon audio book app. I find it very boring because it's just the narration of the text, on and on and on and on. But so how much can I keep hearing one voice reading out pages of that book? So it has to have some other thing to keep you engaged. So audio literature will have to change to be able to keep the audience engaged. Now you can have kinetic literature, which is called literary role-playing game, which I talked about just now. If you're fascinated by one character, you can be a part of that character, or you can change what the narrative says is the main character. You can say, no, as I told you, Ghatotkach is the great hero, so change it. Kumkaran is the great hero, not Vibhishan. So in our linear text of Mahabharata, Vibhishan is the hero who helps out, but in that text, Kumkaran is the hero. So you can change who are your heroes in the text, which will depend on your interpretation. Then you can interact with other players. You can also form a little group where everybody is trying to change something or the other, and you can interact, which will lead to very lively discussions on that text itself. And you can have non-playing characters who you can, on the of the text or of the drama, whom you can make them play. They say something, right? Like in Mahabharata, thousands and thousands of soldiers die, but nobody has heard the voice of the ordinary soldier. But you can create a soldier who tells you what he feels about the whole war. Why is he there? Why is he dying for it? And so you can build up skills and spells as you go along, and this will be very good for science fiction. It will be very good for horror stories. It will be very good for magic realism, right? And then you can have 3D literature, which is already there. You can see 3D films, but gradually, but you don't really see 3D films because you need that glasses to be able to see the 3D effect. But you can they will come out with a technology where you can see 3D films on your computer screen. Why not? If you can create, you can create whole buildings out of it on the computer screen. Why not here? And am I running out of time? Not really. So you can have hypertext fiction where links click to each other, and you can link the interlinks. So you will get visuals and sound effects, and probably the text will develop further, right? Then you can have network fiction, which is like hypertext fiction, but as I said, connect the links and change the story. Oh, I'm being told 5 minutes.
I don't know if you. I got some message.
No,
You carry on, ma'am. Like
because your program said 11:30, so I made myself. Anyway, so let me just run through the rest. You can have locative narratives. You can have flash poems. The only request is that next time, please send a very clear program on how much you want. And last night I said you told me half an hour. Now you've got 1 hour, right? So actually, anyway, you can have fan fiction where you replace somebody by yourself. And today, when we do criticism and we do writing, don't we all first reach to the net and not to the library? So we all first reach out to the net. And of course, we have a lot of data sources. JSTOR is there, and you have the International Journal of English Literature on the net. You have the International Journal of English Language and Literature. You have literature and translation studies, journals pertaining to that. So you have open source journals, and they all have ISSN serial number. And of course, our mindsets have to change, because we say, oh, open source, we are not going to look at it. Why not? Why won't we look at it? We have digital books, and you can do self-publishing. Again, our mindsets have to change, because the tyranny of publishers at this time is really bad. They want you to, unless you're writing a bestseller, they want you to pay to publish you. But you can self-publish, right? So there are many websites where you have free ebooks are available, and both classical and popular fiction is available on the net, especially the Gutenberg project, right? You have a large number of digitized poetry on the sites. Actually, I had a flash poem for you, so this you can all find out. But let me tell you this flash poem. It's a flash poem, flash poem is a very short poem. It says, beneath the shade of pineate leaves, I catch a glimpse, a swirling haze, an agile penché, a dash of graceful pirouettes. Then, like a flash with a glissade, the whirling wind exits the stage. So what is he actually seeing? I leave it to you. Is it just a storm? Is it some female character? Is it his imagination? So a little flash poem can give you the whole arc of narrative. So anyway, we can stop here, and we can look at digital books, which you can self-publish in Amazon, and you can go to many, many poetry sites, digital poetry sites, where they give you beautiful analysis of the poem. It's really worth reading the kind of analysis they give you. Now, I was going to talk about distant reading and close reading. So I will finish by telling you, what is a distant reading? You can take texts, because now immediate translations are available. So you can take text from all over the world. And let's say you're trying to do something on issues of environment in literary texts. Put in tree. Maybe you've taken 10 texts, and you will get tree wherever there is tree in each of those 10 texts. Once you do that, you can go to a close reading, because now you know in which text you can get a greater amount of description and analysis of what it means to cut down trees and what it means for sustainability. You can create literature groups of world literature. This is very useful for comparative literature and for world literature. A cluster of groups can come together from different parts of the world using different texts, and you can have them all in front of you in whatever language you want. You can create a Spanish text out of it, you can have an English text out of it, whatever language you're comfortable with, and you can discuss it, and you can have immediate interpretation of what you're saying. So this is very, very useful. It is a tool which has to be used. How we use it. Now, many people, I know we all complain about ChatGPT. All right, your 50 students have all used the ChatGPT. Their answers will sound the same, right? So who will excel? Who, having done that much from ChatGPT, now has put in herself and created a good critical answer out of it. So the human being will never be lost. The time spent in accessing this and access, I remember we had catalog cards, and from my PhD, I used to run from Sapru House to Hindu College to JNU, all the libraries I could find. Today, it's all there. So the time in collecting material is very limited, gives you time to think, gives you time to analyze. So it's not like the end of the world is coming. We have to change ourselves to make good use of that end of the world. Thank you so much.
very much. एक बगल में चांद होगा, एक बगल में रोटियां. Ma'am, after this flash poem that you. एक बगल में चांद होगा, एक बगल में रोटियां, एक बगल में नींद होगी, एक बगल में लोरियां. हम चांद पे रोटी की चादर ओढ़ के सो जाएंगे, और नींद से कह देंगे लोरी कल सुनाने आएंगे, और नींद से कह देंगे लोरी कल सुनाने आएंगे. Well, these days we are talking less about the chand, the metaphorically the glory of life, and roti, bit more than what is required, the survival part. And ma'am, thank you very much. The way you have given us a very wide, comprehensive, where you said that you are old person where you read literature and you make notes, but the kind of presentation that you have given with a a very updated version of how we can align ourselves, we can adopt and adapt ways with technology, that is very comprehensive. When we sit with this theme, when we sit together like a family and probe into the layers of theme, I'm reminded of Alvin Toffler. I think when we are discussing ways of literature, emerging aspects of literature, we are not basically dealing with the idea of literature alone. We are dealing with life at large, humanities at large. So in that sense, what Toffler says that in 21st century, the idea of literacy, education would undergo a change. And we are feeling that now. Now it's not about the kind of degrees that we'll earn, the kind of high-sounding, very formidable academic laurels that we'll boast about, but it's about how we are able to unlearn, how we are able to, in a way, relocate ourselves, adapt to the new, different situations. That is important, and I think that when we are talking about the idea of literature and the meaning, purpose, I think this is I have in one situation, like I was like it was in 2010-11, and it so happened that in one university called Monash University, Melbourne, they were having a similar program, and they had invited people from all walks of life, doctors, engineers, and like cinema people, like those who write scripts and casting people. And they were sitting like this, and they were talking about how literature has given them a new way of looking at things. So when a doctor operates, when an engineer draws some designs, or when a casting person is doing something, they were saying that perhaps we are nothing without literature. I think that when we are doing it, we are perhaps doing it little, as if we are doing in a closer domain. If we look at that thing, I think that is there on the YouTube. You can look at that, how important literature is, and how we need to kind of in a way align our ways to that. Madam, you talked about literature brings new understanding, and I think that we can go a step beyond, and how maybe in the field of media and communication, people have talked about. I want to bring to the table the this major philosopher, Marshall McLuhan. McLuhan, the way he talked about medium is the message. When this book he talked about, there was a typo error. The title, he said the medium is the message, but someone typed it medium is the massage. And he was very happy, because the medium creates massages our mind and our attention and our ways of perception in a certain way that sometimes it looks different. I think the way he talked about in late 50s and early 60s. And at that time, this idea of AI and digital learning was not there. So I really look at him with a sense of reverence, the way he projected those ideas. Global village concept we see now that we are able to connect to ourselves seamlessly and with a sense of ease but then you have to read what Harari is saying in this book, Nexus, where he's talking about the pitfalls, also the problems as to how sometimes these social media enabling social media platforms sometimes can play havoc with our in a way that the way we want to align with, and the way it brings out our inner problems, and it may lead to more chaos. So that is important. I think if we look at McLuhan and his idea of cold communication, cold medium of communication, hot medium of communication, that is important in our context. As to Madam talked about radio and television, how he talked about radio being very hot medium, and how it allows us that agency to connect more and to kind of learn more, and the kind of space that it creates. And I think you'll understand that. And McLuhan's ideas, in a way, the way he suggests a recipe to kind of deal with this situation is important. May I bring in Toffler once again? Toffler, for example, Alvin Toffler, he produced many important things, very important books. Alvin Toffler and Hedy Toffler, for example, both husband and wife, they researched this idea, and they, it's like an important thing that in a relationship, Heidi, kind of withdrew herself, and she said that all the credit of this will go to Alvin. And Alvin, in this book, Future Shock, talks about this. He talks about the human evolution. He talks about the agrarian revolution, the kind of when from caves, how we kind of adopted agricultural ways, and from agriculture, the way we came to industrial economy, and now that we are computer age. So kind of he talks about this evolution. So when we are talking about meaning, possibilities, and purpose, I think we have to look at history also as to how we have come to find a place today, and how it has talked about the way Toffler talks about demassification, from an industrial point of view, where standardized solutions, standardized kind of ideas were produced from a market perspective. Now, how do we have now to demassify? Now how we have to talk about in the times of rise of the individual, how we have to kind of bring in the individual, like microcentric, me-centric, ideas, or maybe subgroup centric. So I find that very useful. So if you look at Toffler in terms of Future Shock, that his ideas kind of connect very importantly to not only the educational sector, but again to the literature section also, as to how we can in this idea of smartphones, internet, chat GPT, artificial intelligence, how we can kind of talk about demassifying and a kind of my individualized sense of creativity. That is important. I'm also of the opinion that we have to look at Everett Rogers, for example, diffusion of innovations, as to how he talks about how our mind absorbs ideas. He talks about innovators, die-hard innovators who will just wake up every day and will want to do something new and innovative. But that percentage he talks about about 2% of us. And then he talks about early innovators, late innovators, early majority and late majority, and then laggards. I think that the idea that we have from that, the book, very important book, the diffusion of innovations, as to how we can take this forward is meaningful. And then I think you will be happy. He was studying the corn industry interest in America, as to how one part of America is having a very low awareness of corn, producing ways, and then how the other part is very, popular, is very, in a dominant way. So he kind of theorized this, and I think as practitioners of this domain, as practitioners of literary domain, I think as students, as teachers, I can I have this wonderful college. This I it's always a great feeling to be in this college, and I think that we can do something in that direction as to how we can structure, how we can study responses, and then in some way structure a kind of a mechanism to address those also. That is very important. So like when we are talking about interdisciplinarity, multidisciplinarity, transdisciplinarity, I think this is one way we can look at McLuhan, Everett Rogers, and then Alvin Toffler. So likewise, ma'am, you talked about major ways as to how we have professional options these days, and how our students can benefit from this e-literature, digital literature, and this talk, this idea of distant reading and close reading is very important. I think that now we have a very way ahead of us. We have now kind of well laid out carpet before us, and we can structure. And I think that we when we position ourselves, when I talk about demassification, we need to understand as to how we have come to this stage. For example, if in 1947 people were writing about us, if you read the foreign media, you'll look at that, people were laughing at us, like this independence that these people have earned will be very short lived. They were very skeptical of our ways, but now that we have find ourselves very firmly footed in this, and in the kind of knowledge system that we have, Dubey Saab, like I'm reminded of Raja Rao, Raja Rao, who says that India is not a desha, India is not a country, a geographical kind of place. It's a darshana, it's a philosophy, it's a metaphysics. So like that, like I think when we are sitting here, we need to kind of see as to what unique ways of family, faith, freedom, and the idea of living for the sake of others that we have in our minds, in our consciousness, and that will give us a way that will kind of suggest a way to us, to kind of lead us to into the future. That is important, and I feel that awareness of our situation, awareness of our local realities. Of course, everyone is talking about this wild, massive, inundating kind of wave of technology. But when we understand the situation and kind of the responsibility that we have, everyone is talking about when I think our principal will talk about this at some level, like how we are kind of bringing in Indian knowledge system, Indian knowledge tradition in a big way, and there are sufficient suggestions and kind of ideas there that we can utilize from there and benefit. I think I'll stop here, and we'll get to discuss more about this with the hope, with a sense of thankfulness and gratitude to this wonderful college, this wonderful environment. And I must thank our principal for he was talking as to how he has created this space and this wonderful theme: literature in artificial times, meaning, possibilities, meaning, purpose. The middle word is now the purpose is more important. If we have the purpose in our mind, if we have the chant, the glory in our mind, I think we will be able to earn rotis easily. Thank you very much. I stop here.
Thank you, Kavita ma'am. It's a sincere and heartfelt gratitude that I extend towards you for disseminating the information. And thank you, Pramod sir, for the lovely song and the lovelier discussion that followed. And thank you for invigorating our students with the energy. Also, I would like to invite Principal Sir for the concluding remarks.
I think the chief guest and the guest of honor, Professor Kavita Sharma and Professor Pramod Kumar, they have already enlightened the audience, and I think they have almost touched every aspect of this theme. And apart from that, Professor Kavita also mentioned about that how people in civil services, they have the domination and liking that people coming from medicine, engineering, they prefer to go to civil services, which is not the right trend, because actually it is something you have studied something for 15 years, 20 years, and then you suddenly go to some other field, especially for the car. So apart from this artificial times relevance of literature, she has also mentioned that what the student should do. And I think this is what the beginning we were expecting for this seminar. And I'm sure that everybody would have enlightened by their remarks, by their suggestions, by their lecture. And I thank them that they have really inspired the audience, the students and the faculty members. And we look forward for more such programs in future from your side. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, sir, for those kind words. We now break for high tea. We shall reconvene here at 12. 11:30 तो हो गया. 11:30 तो हो गया. It's served. The high tea is being served downstairs. We request the guests and the scholars to join us.